Rusame reader, Rusong, and today I will be reading to you from Beneath the Surface by Unnamed Untold. And I'm just going to put this warning in every chapter because it doesn't state which ones it is. But the warnings for the entire book are depression, suicidal thoughts, suicide attempt, anorexia, bulimia, and vulgar language. One of those things is not like the others. But that being said, on to Chapter 1, How It Started. It was a rather normal world meeting. Everything was going as it normally did with the nations of the world when they had all gotten together under one roof. In other words, complete chaos. Everyone was arguing with or yelling at someone. Poor Germany had given up trying to get the meeting back under order hours ago, and instead sat in his chair with one happy Italian on his lap, and another cursing him out. Britain and France argued over a semi-transparent Canada who tried to calm people down, but the poor baby looked like he always did. China was complaining about how immature everyone was, while also arguing with Japan. Greece and Turkey were in a near fist fight over something one of them had said. The Nordic Five were arguing loudly amongst themselves, mostly just Norway snapping at Denmark, who kept trying to hug him, while Finland tried to settle the two of them down. Amidst all the chaos, America was going on about how he was the hero. While it looked like he was just being an idiot, the truth was he was trying to distract everyone from their arguments and fights. If he could get their attention, even at the cost of a few jabs, then he could help Germany and his brother get the meeting back underway. It was a lightning rod tactic that usually worked, but no one saw or realized what he was doing. Unfortunately, it didn't work this time. Instead, it only made a certain Russian very angry. Sitting at one end of the table, only 3 seats down from America, was a very irritated Russia. He glared darkly at the American, making him give off a dark aura, frightening the nations nearest to him. One by one, the others picked up on his dark energy and settled down, everyone except for America, who continued on talking loudly. Alfred, point of view. America, why do you continue to yap like a little dog? It has become very annoying. Russia said with his signature smile. I turned to look at the commie with irritation. I was frustrated that it took this long to calm everyone down, and was about to redirect my anger to him. I am just talking. It's not like everyone else wasn't doing the same thing a minute ago before you scared everyone half to death like usual. It's no wonder you don't have any friends. I knew that was a mean thing to say, and I regretted it almost immediately after I said it. His aura seemed to darken even further. You act like people actually like your fat ass. No one wants to be seen with a disgusting slob like you. No one wants to even be near you. Lord knows you'd probably try to kill them. The only reason people sit next to you at meetings is because there isn't enough room for them to go anywhere else. Like sitting next to you is so enjoyable while you shove those little things you call food down your throat and you talk with your mouth full. You spit food everywhere. It's disgusting. Fat pig. Fuck you! I snapped at him. Those words actually hurt, but I never tell him that. Sorry, I'm not the whore like you. He smirked. I flew at him when he called me a whore. I hated being called that more than anything else. He didn't expect me to attack, so I was able to land a solid punch on his jaw. I could only gloat in my tiny victory for a second before he was on me. In a ball of flying fists and kicking legs, we destroyed the meeting room. The nations yelled in shock and fear as the fighting escalated. Somehow, Russia had pinned me down while his hands were wrapped around my neck, almost cutting off my airflow. I was clawing at his face while repeatedly kicking him in the ribs and abdomen. I could hear cracks where his ribs broke and left long gashes on his face. We were finally pulled apart by the nations, but I was too distracted by him to see which ones. We were both pulled away and shoved into different closets where we both calmed down. I sat on the floor and tended to my wounds while I calmed. I was mostly bruised, with a few cuts from where I fell when we broke the table. Those were already starting to heal. The only thing that concerned me in the slightest was the puncture wound above my hip. I lifted my shirt to see that it wasn't too bad and left it alone. Now that I was mostly calm, I thought back over the fight. The only thing I could think was that my boss was going to kill me. Time skipped to 2 days later. I sat outside my boss's office where he was having a meeting with Russia's boss. Sad Nation glared at me from across the small hall. He looked like he was mostly recovered from our little scuffle the other day. I fiercely returned his glare with one of my own. We stayed locked in this little battle until our bosses came out of the room. I stood up to face them, and barely noticed that Russia did the same. This endless fighting needs to stop. You two need to learn to get along. So, we're going to put you two in the same house for 1 month, my boss said. We immediately started to protest, but we were just silenced just as quickly. This will force you two to get along. You both are not allowed to fight with each other while you two are there. If you do, there will be consequences, Russia's boss stated. You have to spend every meal with each other, with the exception of breakfast. Every other day you will go out and do something together. Go see a movie, eat out, take a walk through the woods, something. But you have to do it together. You two have to spend a minimum of 2 hours together each day. Play a board game or watch a movie, something, as long as you two are together. Your stay together will last 30 days. You start the day after tomorrow. My boss finished. And where will we be staying? I asked. In your house in the woods. Why? I like that house. I don't want him in it, I said, pointing to Russia. America, you two will be staying in that house together, and that's final, he ordered. I glared at him, but didn't say anything else. You two will learn to get along, and this will be the way you two will do it. We are running out of ways to get you two to get along. The next step is to handcuff you two together, Russia's boss said sternly. I looked at Russia, and we both agreed on the same thing, for the first time in many years. This is bullshit, we said in unison. Look at that, it's already working. They're already agreeing on stuff, his boss said arrogantly, earning him 2 harsh glares. Another time skip. I looked through my suitcases one more time to make sure I had everything. I made a mental checklist as I sorted through everything this last time. Cloths, books, notebook, taser, etc. It seemed like I had everything that I needed. Satisfied with what I had, I loaded everything into my car's trunk. The plan was that we packed and drove there today, and our time starts tomorrow. I darted around the house one last time to make sure that I wasn't forgetting something. I checked the time, grabbed the cat carrier with Hero in it, and left. I would have to pick Russia up at the hotel, but then drive to the house. Unfortunately, the house was a 9-hour drive, not including breaks, so we had to start early in the morning. I placed the carrier in the back seat and made sure that it wouldn't slide around. I took one last look around the house that I was currently resided in and drove off. Russia's hotel was only 30 minutes away, so it wasn't long before I pulled up to the building. I pulled out my phone and texted him that I was here. As part of our punishment, we had to exchange phone numbers as well. I am outside of the building. Where are you? I am in front of the pine tree next to the bench. So far, we have been civil in our conversations. I wonder how long that'll last. I stepped outside of the car to pop the trunk when I noticed that he was carrying more than just a suitcase. He had a carrier in his hand as well. Why didn't you tell me you had a cat? I asked him, a bit miffed. Must have slipped my mind, he said with a smile as he put his stuff in the trunk. Well, I would have appreciated a heads up. I have a cat as well, and she doesn't take kindly to other cats. We're going to have to figure something out, 'cause I don't want them fighting. I replied angrily, as I got back in the driver's seat. And people call me inconsiderate, I huffed under my breath. I watched him carefully through the rearview mirror. He had to move a few things around in the trunk to fit his suitcase, which was a lot bigger than I thought it would be. Once he was done, he opened the car door behind the passenger seat. He carefully set his carrier down next to mine. To my surprise, Hero didn't immediately start to hiss when she smelled another cat. Usually she would go crazy, so I assumed that she was asleep, and she would start hissing as soon as she woke up. We best get moving now, da? Ivan said from next to me. I don't want to have to spend any more time with your fat ass than necessary. Trust me, the feeling is mutual, fucker, I grumbled. Another time skip to about 6 hours later. We stopped at a cute diner with outside seats just on the edge of town. It was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were both hungry. I stepped out of the car and stretched my aching legs. I hated having to sit relatively still for more than 2 hours, so this trip was a killer. I rubbed my aching eyes before turning to Russia. Go get us a seat while I take care of the cats, I told him, and opened the back door. What are you doing? He asked. Letting them out to pee, I responded as I untangled Hero's harness. I opened her cage and let her walk out. She stretched and yawned before climbing onto my lap so I could put the harness on her. I put the leash on her harness and let her jump out of the car. I closed the door so that the air conditioning would stay in. I walked her over to a little strip of woods so she could do her business. She sniffed around for a moment before finding a decent spot. I let her do her thing, and then took her back to the car. Then repeated the process with Russia's cat. I changed their water bowls and added more food to their dishes, gave them each a bit of love before leaving. I walked into the diner, pleased with its interior decoration. It was an older style with a homey feel to it. It was mostly wood decoration with a few paintings and some deer heads mounted on the walls. The lights casted a warm honey glow over the place, and it was bright enough to see, but not too bright as to not ruin the feeling of the place. I looked around to see that Russia had picked a spot in front of the car so that we could keep an eye on the cats. I walked over to the booth seat and sat across from him. I picked up the menu to see what kind of food they had. Don't bother looking at the menu, I heard him say. I looked up at him questioningly. I already ordered for you. Why? I asked, surprised. I already knew what your fat ass wanted, he replied with a smirk. I glared at him and then looked out the window. The town where we were was a small, quiet town, as it had no real big buildings in it, but it was very wide. It would take us about 40 minutes to cross from one side to the other. From there, it would be about another hour into the forest that covers 3/4 of the town before we got to my house. A house that I hadn't visited in about 30 years. I moved from house to house roughly every 5 years to avoid suspicion from people around them. I wasn't supposed to visit this one for a long time. I sighed. I was in for a long cleaning session when I got there. It won't be too bad since I have someone to go to my houses and clean them once a month, but I would still have some serious dusting. I'd probably have to fix a few things up as well. I wouldn't need to add any new appliances, though. I keep the houses updated as best as I could, and remodeled one in particular only 2 years ago. I was brought out of my thoughts when a plate was placed before me. I looked up to see a young waitress with a big smile dropping off her food. I smiled back up at her when she asked if we needed anything else. No, ma'am, thank you, though, I told her, and she walked away. I am shocked that you have any form of manners, Russia said as he started to eat his food. I am polite to people I like, I told him as I started picking at my burger. It wasn't a really good burger. The cheese was melted on and the buns were grilled a little too well. What about England? He asked. I said people I like. England hasn't been on that list in years. Oh, and the specific reason why? He asked. No, he's just a jerk. Always complaining about something, and it's usually something I've done. He's always nagging and pointing out everyone else's flaws. But God forbid you point out one of his, and if you do, then you're the rude one. He's also so arrogant and self-centered. I ranted. Russia gave a light chuckle at my little rant. I believe that is something we can both agree on. Now, hurry up and eat. Lampushka does not like to stay in his carrier for very long. Yeah. I started to eat the burger as fast as I could, trying to ignore his looks of disgust. I inhaled the fries just as quickly, which was a feat considering the large amount they gave me. The Coke was the last to go. Russia had finished his much smaller meal in the time it took me to finish my large one. When the check came, I paid for the meal, even though he protested and tried to pay his part. I told him it was fine. I'll get it this time. How about you head out to the car and wait for me? I need to use the bathroom, I told him as I walked to where the restroom was. He nodded and left. I made my way to the bathroom and was relieved to find it empty. I pushed open one of the stall doors, locked it, and knelt in front of it. I stuck 2 fingers down my throat to trigger my gag reflex. Come, fatty, you need to get all that food before you can get even more fat. I can't believe you ate all that, pig, I heard a voice in my head say. Within moments, I was throwing up everything I had just eaten. Even after that, I started dry heaving. I still kept going to make sure there was nothing left. After a while, I got up, flushed the toilet, washed my hands, and left. I looked in the mirror, and all I saw staring back at me was a gross, ugly fat ass. That's what you are. It's no wonder everyone bullies you. Who in their right mind would want to be seen with a disgusting slob like you? I sighed sadly at my thoughts. They were all true. Why else would no one hang out with me, even when I asked them? Why else do they always make up some excuse? It's because they all hate me. I sighed again before plastering a fake smile back on my face. I walked out of the restaurant, saying goodbye to the nice waitress on my way out. Russia was in the car, playing on his phone, which he got off the second I got in the car. I started the car and turned to him. Okay, you're going to want to pay attention to where I'm going and the places around town. This is the closest town to my home for miles. So, if you want to come up here for any reason, you need to pay attention to the directions, I told him as I pulled out of the parking lot. Very well. I would like to know how to get as far away from you as possible without getting lost, he said with a smile. I growled under my breath. I pointed out a few buildings I thought he might like, such as the library and the movie theater. Getting out of the town was mostly a straight shot, with a few turns here and there. Before long, we were in the beautiful forest that surrounded my home. Once we were out of the town, it was silent in the car once again. I turned on the radio so that there was just some noise. Every once in a while, I would hear one of the cats meow. Finally, after a 9-hour journey, we made it to my house. It was a cute little 2-story home surrounded by woods with 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths. One on the main floor, one connected to the guest room, and lastly one connected to my room. All the bedrooms were on the top floor. On the ground floor, just to the right of the foyer, was the living room. It had a large sofa in front of a TV and a love seat in front of the fireplace. Another seat was built into a large window that faced the front yard. Connected to the living room was the kitchen. It was modern themed with black and white as its colors. It had an island that I used as the place where I eat. It was fully stocked since my boss had someone fill the place with groceries. To the kitchen's left was the large ground floor bathroom. It had a huge bath and a separate shower. The bathroom's theme was gold, black, and white. In front of the bathroom was the staircases. One led upstairs while the other led to the basement. The basement was mostly full of old boxes, cleaning supplies, the washer and dryer, and stuff I've collected throughout the years. Through the glass sliding doors, you got to the backyard. It was mostly empty, with only a shed for firewood and a large fire pit. An apple tree stood not far from the shed, which was on the right side of the yard. I stepped out of the car and took a deep breath of the warm, crisp autumn air. While it was still warm, you could tell that winter was right around the corner. It was that interesting time of the year where one day is warm and sunny and the next is a blanket of snow. I loved the guesswork involved with this time of the year. I stretched before grabbing all my suitcases. I ran up to the house and unlocked it. I ran up to my room to drop off all my stuff. I came back down just as quickly to grab Hero from the car. I passed by Russia on my way out. He had his stuff and Lampushka in the living room. I just stopped long enough to tell him to take his boots off by the front door. I ran back outside to get Hero. Upon bringing her in, I noticed that Russia had already let his cat out. He was a large cat with brown fur that had a fluffy white patch around his neck and the tip of his tail. He also seemed friendly enough when I put Hero's carrier down. He immediately went up to it and started to meow at her. I kept her in there for a while longer to see how she would react, and I was surprised to see that she started meowing back at him in a friendly way instead of hissing and growling. I thought you said she hated other cats? Russia asked, confused. She normally does. I guess Lampushka is an exception, I said, just as confused. I opened the door, and she immediately ran out to greet him. They sniffed each other while purring loudly. Hero took off in one direction with Lampushka following close behind. I watched them play for a little while with a smile on my face. Come on, I'll show you to your room. Just follow me, I told Russia once I was able to take my eyes off the cats. Da. He followed me up the stairs to where the bedrooms were. I walked over to the corner one to the left. This room is the farthest from mine. It is also the second largest with its own half bath. I'm going to retire for the night. See you in the morning. Good night, Thematica, he called out as I entered my room. I dug around in one of my suitcases and pulled out a soft pair of Superman pajama pants and a loose, comfy t-shirt. I took off my day clothes, being careful of my bandaged wrist, put on the pajamas, put the dirty clothes in the hamper, and hung my jacket up on the bedpost. I pulled out my laptop and set it up on my desk. The battery was dead, so I was going to charge it all night. I then proceeded to put everything else away. It took only 10 minutes to get my room in order. Once I was done with my room, I pulled out my journal from the hiding spot I had chosen. I opened it to its next page. Today, Russia and I have crossed several states to get to my home in the woods. I still can't believe that our bosses are making us do this. I don't understand how putting us in the same house together is going to make us like each other. We always argue and get into fights, sometimes physical, but mostly verbal, where we hurl insults at each other. We do that a lot, especially him. Just today, he's insulted me many times. It's not like he isn't wrong, though. I am just a lazy fat ass. No matter how hard I try, I can't lose enough weight to get anyone to like me. I haven't eaten in 2 days, besides this afternoon. I had a burger, some fries, and a Coke. Don't worry, I threw it all up the first chance I got, so that I wouldn't become even more fat than I am already. I also cut myself this morning. I couldn't stop thinking about all the insults people threw at me. The last meeting. Fat, lazy, slut, slob, disgusting, stupid, obnoxious, dump, annoying, good for nothing, idiot, pig, half-wit, whore, dumbass, and so many more. They're right. They're right. They're always right. I'm everything they say I am. Except one. I am not a whore. God, I feel like cutting again, and I think I'm going to. I'll talk to you again tomorrow. Good night. I closed my journal while wiping tears from my eyes. I slid it back under my nightstand where it's hidden. With watery vision, I made my way to the bathroom. It was a large bathroom, like the one downstairs, and its theme was golden brown. I pulled out a razor from behind the hand soap. I undid my bandages and took a look at the scars underneath. All up and down my forearm were old ones and new scars. Some deep from where I tried to attempt suicide in the past, only surviving because I changed my mind at the last minute. Today, 8 barely scabbed lines stood out from the rest. I traced a finger over one before taking the blade and creating a new line next to it. It wasn't as deep, but the razor did just as bad. I don't know why, but the pain made me feel better. I kept slashing at my arms, going just a bit deeper each time until I had made 10 new cuts on each arm. I sat on the polished hardwood floor, silently crying. A small pool of blood pooled around me. I didn't want Russia to come in and see me like this. I cried even harder when I thought about him. Ever since the day I met him, I loved him. He was so caring and gentle back then. He was so nice. We were the best of friends back in the day. Then Soviet Union happened and he changed. He grew dark and dangerous. He became a madman that hurt others. The friend I once adored and loved was someone else entirely. After the fall of the Soviet Union, he went back to how he used to be, mostly. But we never went back to how we used to be. And it broke my heart. It breaks my heart to see the man I care for act the way he does now. Every jab and insult hurts worse coming from him than it does anyone else. Knowing that my once friend and love thinks of me like that hurts so much. I know we'll never be lovers or even friends again. But if we could at least stop being enemies, that would be enough for me. I wiped the tears from my eyes and stand up. I opened the medical kit and started to clean my cuts. I didn't want them getting infected, so I used alcohol. It stung worse than the actual cutting, but I didn't care. I bandaged up my arms and left the bathroom. I heard meows come from my door. I knew it was Hero, ready for bed. So I opened the door enough to let her in. I scooped her up in my arms and carried her to the king-sized bed. I plopped her down on a big pillow to sleep on. I crawled into the bed and snuggled under the covers. From the top of the bed, I could hear Hero purring loudly. It soothed me from my earlier crying fit. If today is any indication on how the rest of the visit is going to go, then it's going to be a long month. And that's the end of this chapter. Christ, I forgot how angsty this book is. And how many trigger warnings actively apply. Anyway, that's it for chapter 1. I hope you enjoyed it as much as you can. If you're an angst lover, I guess this is right up your fucking alley. Anyway, you have a great rest of your day, night, or whatever it is for you. Just enjoy your time, and I will see you tomorrow.